World leaders and heads of religious denominations have paid tribute to Pope Francis, whose death was announced by the Vatican this morning. He was 88 and had for 38 days been admitted in a hospital where he was undergoing treatment for respiratory issues.
The first Latin American pope, known for his humble demeanor and his policies of reform, Pope Francis ushered in a new era of leadership of the Roman Catholic Church when he was elected to the papacy in March 2013. Francis is the first pope from the Western Hemisphere, the first from South America, Argentina, and the first from the Jesuit order. From his first public appearance as pope, during which he wore a simple white cassock and greeted the well-wishers who had gathered in St. Peter's Square in Vatican City with the words Buonasera, Buonasera, which means good evening. Pope Francis inspired and fascinated Catholics around the world. Pope Francis took charge of a church at a crossroads, challenged by continuing effects of the clergy sex abuse crisis. He promoted unity among Catholics and called upon the church to embrace its global diversity. He also championed the poor and oppressed. In 2022, Pope Francis paid a visit to Canada in what he described as the pilgrimage of penance. The aim of the visit was to make a historic apology to indigenous survivors of abuse in Catholic-run institutions. His tenure was largely seen as revolutionary, as Pope Francis broke with Catholic conservative traditions and took a more liberal and sometimes centrist position on a key number of controversial issues. On atheism, Pope Francis said even those who do not believe in God can ascend to heaven if they lead good and honorable lives. Later, Pope Francis would give an exclusive interview to an atheist Italian journalist, where he called efforts to convert people to Christianity solemn nonsense. In an earlier homily in May, Pope Francis would famously say, "The Lord has redeemed all of us with the blood of Christ, all of us, not just Catholics." In 2024, while in Singapore, Pope Francis told a gathering of youths that all religion lead to God.
Sort of a comparison and an example would be they're sort of like different languages in order to arrive at God.
Ma Dio è Dio per tutti.
But God is God for all.
E come Dio è Dio per tutti, noi siamo tutti figli di Dio.
And if God is God for all, then we're all sons and daughters of God.
Pope Francis also spoke publicly about climate change, Israel-Hamas war, forgiveness for women who have abortions, consumer culture, corporate greed, amongst many other issues. Pope Francis met with leaders of governments and other faiths, visiting places of conflict and countries that had never before hosted a papal visit, including Iraq and Mongolia. To acknowledge the importance of Africa to the Catholic Church, Pope Francis made his fifth visit to the continent in February 2023. He visited the Democratic Republic of Congo and South Sudan to focus on the conflicts that have torn the two countries apart. The Pope had previously visited Kenya, Uganda, Central African Republic, Egypt, Morocco, Mozambique, Madagascar, and Mauritius. The Pope was seen 2 weeks ago leaving hospital after he battled a life-threatening case of pneumonia in both lungs. But his last appearance will be on Easter Sunday, after he appeared in St. Peter's Square to wish Happy Easter to thousands of worshippers. His traditional Easter address and blessing was read by an aide while he sat and watched on. Following the blessing, he was driven around the square. As he passed through the crowds, his procession paused a number of times as babies were brought over to him to bless. The Pope's death was announced on Monday morning by Cardinal Kevin Farrell, the Vatican Camerlengo. The statement said that Pope Francis died at 7:35 Monday morning. The impact of the Pope's death will be felt not just in the immediate, but even in the long term, as Roman Catholics all around the world wait with bated breath on who the next Pope might be, the future direction of the Church, and will the Roman Catholic Church continue or break with the liberal policies of Pope Francis, who was largely seen as a voice for the poor.
Born in Buenos Aires, Argentina, he was ordained a Catholic priest in 1969. He served as Jesuit Provincial Superior in Argentina from 1973 to 1979 and later became Archbishop of Buenos Aires in 1998. He was ordained Cardinal in 2001. Elected Pope at 76 years old, after the resignation of Pope Benedict XVI, he was chosen on March 13, 2013, the second day of the papal conclave. As the first Jesuit Pope, he was known for being less formal than his predecessors. He chose not to live in the official papal residence, opting instead for a suite in the Vatican guest house. Notably, Pope Francis will be the first Pope since Pope Leo XIII to be buried outside the Vatican. During his time as Pope, Pope Francis committed the Catholic Church to the worldwide abolition of the death penalty in any circumstance. In the light of the gospel, he said, "The death penalty is inadmissible because it's an attack on the inviolability and dignity of the person." On the role of women in church, Pope Francis rejected the ordination of women as priests, stating that the fact that the woman doesn't access ministerial life is not a deprivation, because her place is much more important. However, in January 2021, he issued a Spiritus Domini, allowing bishops to institute women to the ministries of acolyte and lector. Pope Francis also emphasized the need to accept, welcome, and accompany LGBT people. He denounced the criminalization of homosexuality, calling on the Catholic Church to distinguish between a sin and crime. On abortion, Pope Francis condemned the practice, asking the Church to protect the precious gift of life, life in the womb, the lives of children.
Reacting to the death of the Pope, King Charles III paid tributes to him in a statement in which he said, quote, "His Holiness will be remembered for his compassion, his concern for the unity of the Church, and for his tireless commitment to the common causes of all people of faith. We send our most heartfelt condolences and profound sympathy to the Church he served with such resolve, and to the countless people around the world who, inspired by his life, will be mourning the devastating loss of this faithful follower of Jesus Christ." Paying tribute to the Pope, the head of the Church of England, Archbishop Justice Welby, described him as a holy man of God who was also very human. The White House has paid tribute to the Pope in a post on X, saying, "Rest in peace, Pope Francis," with a picture of the Pope meeting with the U.S. President Donald Trump and his wife Melania. U.S. Vice President J.D. Vance, who met with Pope Francis hours before his death, says he was happy to see the Pope on Easter Sunday, though he was obviously very ill. He adds, quote, "My heart goes out to the millions of Christians all over the world who loved him." Condoling with the Catholic Church on behalf of the people of the United Kingdom, Prime Minister Keir Starmer says, he was a pope for the poor, the downtrodden, and the forgotten. The Italian Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni, on her part, says the news saddens Italy deeply, adding that the Pope asked the world for the courage to change direction, to follow a path that does not destroy but cultivates. The European Parliament President Roberta Metsola says his contagious smile captured millions of people's hearts across the globe. For the French President Emmanuel Macron, who was in the group of the first world leaders to pay tribute to Pope Francis, he was a man of humility. Germany's Chancellor-in-Waiting, Friedrich Merz, says, quote, "The death of Pope Francis fills me with great sadness. Francis will be remembered for his tireless commitment to the weakest members of society, to justice and to reconciliation." Reacting from India, Prime Minister Narendra Modi says, Pope Francis will also be remembered as a beacon of compassion, humility and spiritual courage by millions across the world. The Israeli President Isaac Herzog hails his boundless compassion. Still in the Middle East, Foreign Ministry spokesman of Iran, a Muslim-majority country which maintains close ties with the Vatican, says, quote, I offer condolences to all Christians around the world. And back here in Nigeria, President Tinubu describes the Pope as an instrument of peace who deeply embodied the message of Christ, love for God and love for humanity. The president says in a time of division, he built bridges between faith, the rich and the poor.